When it was cancelled, that came as a real shock. We'd done those sorts of stories. I'd read those sorts of stories on the 6 o'clock news before, but not our own.
You became the news.
Yeah.
And you kind of had to report on your own career ending.
If you don't like what's been said about you, change the conversation. All the headlines once that announcement came out was that I hadn't been made redundant. I'd resigned. I saw that as an opportunity to do something I really wanted to do.
Household name and face of the nation, Mike McRoberts.
Kia ora, good evening.
For over 40 years, Mike was the face of 60 Minutes, 3 News, and more recently Newshub, after a long and colourful career as a journalist that took him to protests, natural disasters, and even war zones all around the world.
My parents were 16 when they had me, and then they had 3 other kids as well. And we lived very much paycheck to paycheck. My dad was actually made redundant at one point, and I remember, it was such a terrible time for us. It made me keenly aware of the freedom that money brings.
You'd worked so hard for so many years. You'd been to war zones for work. You were literally wearing bulletproof vests, presenting the news.
From the day of the announcement, we had 4 months until our final date on air, and which we had to complete to get our redundancy. Went around different people in the newsroom and said, we need to make sure that we are still putting out the best product we can, because when we leave this place on the 5th of July, we want to leave with money. It gave us a control, I guess, or a positive end to what was a pretty horrible situation. I remember talking to my beautiful daughter Maya, she's 23, and she said, "Dad, whatever you do next, just know that it doesn't have to be forever."
Welcome to Where's My Money? One man, $1 million of debt, one podcast to find a way out.
It's been a very short break, but welcome back to season 4 of Where's My Money. Before we get stuck in, I want to celebrate for a quick second. Where's My Money won an award. Last week we were crowned Best Finance or Business Podcast at the 25 Podcast and Radio Awards.
Next award, Best Business and Finance Podcast. The winner is Where's My Money, Rova.
I want to thank you. If you've listened, recommended, shared, subscribed, uttered the words Where's My Money, thank you. We wouldn't still be going if it wasn't for you. So stoked the little podcast that we came up with has resonated with so many Kiwis. Big thanks to our mates and partners Enable Me Too. They are fantastic people who really want to help Kiwis nail their finances, and they've just been awesome to work with. So thanks very much. I feel lucky to say I've never lost my job, but for thousands of Kiwis in the last few years, that's been their reality. In the last mini recession we've just been through, more than 30,000 Kiwis have faced redundancy. While it can be kind of liberating and a powerful time to pivot into something new and exciting, losing your job can mean more than just loss of income. We tend to tie our sense of self-worth and our identities to our career, especially if you've been in a role for a long time. This is the case for household name and face of the nation, Mike McRoberts. For over 40 years, Mike was the face of 60 Minutes, 3 News, and more recently Newshub, after a long and colourful career as a journalist that took him to protests, natural disasters, and even war zones all around the world. But in 2024, when Newshub announced it was closing down, Mike, the uncle of our nation, just like many Kiwis, had lost his job. Mike joined me in the Where's My Money studio to talk about a very public redundancy and how he bounced back. Well, this is the first time I will ever say this and the last time, but kia ora, good evening. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a long time coming because I've wanted to have this conversation with you for ages, and it seems like the right time. We're talking about people who, are in the unfortunate position of losing their jobs. And for you, you were somewhat the face of the nation for a very long time. I mean, your career spanned how many? It was like 30 years of amazing journalism.
40 years of journalism, and 20 of that fronting the 6 o'clock news for TV3. So when it was cancelled, that came as a real shock. We'd done those sorts of stories. I'd read those sorts of stories on the 6 o'clock news before, but not our own.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You became the news, and you kind of had to report on your own career ending, which was bizarre. Not ending, but in that form. Yeah, it was coming to an end, and you had to talk about that to your audience. Was that?
Yeah, it was tough. But then that's part of the profession of being a newsreader, I guess, and so I just kind of did it a little bit on autopilot, if I'm being honest. But
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing was the shock, and in retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have been so shocked, but I knew it wouldn't be cuts because we'd already had cuts. I thought it might be amputations. I didn't think that they'd actually kill the patient completely.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was tough to get your head around, and in such a public way.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And as I said, lots of New Zealanders go through this every week.
It's public, but it's almost this personal thing because people have let you into their living rooms. I hate that adage because it's a bit corny, but it's true. Like you're a trusted person and you're actually part of a lot of people's lives who were tuning in at 6 p.m. every night. It's part of routine. You're part of the furniture in some people's house, and for them it must have come as a bit of a shock as well.
Yeah, it was, certainly from the feedback we got, absolutely. And, I was worried about the legacy of Newshub, and before it 3 News. It was 35 years it would been a news service and delivered the 6 o'clock news every night. And all of a sudden it was going. And so what happened to all of those stories and things like that? There was a lot of stuff sort of swelling around at the time. As a leader in the newsroom, I was very mindful of how everyone else was coping.
Yeah.
But in those first few weeks, months, we were all at least in the same boat. It was ending on the 5th of July, and that was it. No more 6 o'clock news on TV3. They then turned around and went to Stuff and said, listen, do you guys want to put together a 6 o'clock news bulletin? In fact, I'm not sure who went to who. Yeah. But that deal was done.
That's right. Michael Morrow was kind of leading the charge on that, wasn't he? As one of the team that was...
We actually got a group of journalists together from the newsroom to try and put forward some sort of proposal to keep the 6 o'clock news at least. But it didn't work out in the end. And so that was when Stuff came in and offered to do it. And it was a strange announcement. It was done in our newsroom. It really had nothing to do with our newsroom. It was more a business deal between Stuff and Warner Brothers. So we'd gone from being made redundant to being replaced.
True. Yeah.
And that was a weird thing to get your head around. And tough for a lot of people, because there weren't going to be a lot of us that went on to the Stuff show. And there haven't been. No.
Well, it was like a handful, right?
Yeah. And nothing against the guys that are doing it now. They had an opportunity, and of course they're our brothers and sisters. And good on them. But for a lot of people, it was tough. I keep saying the word tough. I've got to think of a better word than tough.
No. This is meant to be an open. It's a safe space, Mike.
Yeah.
But, because this was your career, like you'd worked so hard for so many years, you'd been to war zones for work, right? A lot of us go to the office for work. You were literally wearing bulletproof vests, presenting the news. You'd climbed the ladder so publicly and become, everyone dreams. If you're a journalist, you want to be the anchor, right? Everyone dreams of being the face of the news. Did that shake your identity? Because for me, like part of who I am is my career, because I feel like I've worked really hard, and the radio stations I work for or the podcasts that I'm hosting, I feel like it's part of me.
Right.
So when that changes or disappears, I feel like part of me's gone. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, probably the best job in television. When I used to go and speak to journalism students, they either wanted to be war correspondents or 6 o'clock news presenters.
That's it. And you'd done both. You'd linked one to the other.
Yeah. And so I'd had a great career. So there was that in the back of my mind. I remember talking to my beautiful daughter, Maya. She's 23, and she said, Dad, whatever you do next, just know that it doesn't have to be forever. And I said to her, well, that's very sage advice, darling, particularly for a man whose current CV still has his 1981 school set results on him. Because I'd worked for 3 companies. But
that's it.
I'd worked for Radio New Zealand, I'd worked for Television New Zealand, and I'd worked at 3.
Talk about longevity.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, and probably if that hadn't have happened, they would have carried me out of the place in a box,
Yeah.
So I saw that as an opportunity to do something I really wanted to do, and for me it was kaupapa Māori. So I had this weird thing where I decided that I didn't want to be part of, who was going to be the new 6 o'clock presenter on the Stuff TV show. I wrote a press release and I said, I wasn't interested in pursuing that, and I was going to do something else. Some of it was in Te Reo Māori, because that's what I've been learning. That's been my path. And
and that's a journey you've been sharing very publicly as well.
And I really wanted to do something that was in kaupapa Māori. I thought, this is an opportunity to push and chase something that I feel really passionate about. The funny thing was, all the headlines once that announcement came out was that I hadn't been made redundant. I'd resigned, and so
because you press released it, therefore you've made the call. Yeah,
there's that great line in that TV series, Mad Men. If you want to, if you don't like what's been said about you, change the conversation. So,
yeah.
And then shortly after that, I was offered a job by NBR's publisher and owner to be their Te Ao Māori editor. And it was a position that they had actually created for me. So in the meantime, I was looking at doing more kind of corporate speaking work. I'd sign up to a few conferences. I'd agreed to write a book. So I kind of went from being nearly unemployed to overemployed.
Yeah, well, because I guess all of those parts come as almost side hustles. If you're in the media, quite often you've got the MC gigs that come up, and you're always going to sort of land on your feet in some way. But I feel, after such a high pressure role that was so public and such a public end to it all, that almost kind of didn't matter because so much of it had just been thrown away. You couldn't control it, or you tried to, but you couldn't really. A lot of emotions must have been flying around throughout this.
There was, and there was something underlying to all of that too. So from the day of the announcement, we had 4 months until our final date on air, and which we had to complete to get our redundancy.
Oh, that's a long time.
It's a long time, but particularly when it's such a performance-related position, and also industry.
Yeah.
So we had to keep pumping out the 6 o'clock news, and I thought about it for a while, and I went around different people in the newsroom and said, we need to make sure that we are still putting out the best product we can, because when we leave this place on the 5th of July, we want to leave with mana, and
you're only as good as your last broadcast.
Exactly,
right? Yeah.
Exactly, and it could have easily dissolved into a rabble. Otherwise.
Yeah. Do you feel like you did that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel really proud of that. And I remember on the very last show, I had the privilege of saying the last words on Newshub, which was the whakatauki, ia ha te mea nui o te ao, what is the most important thing in the world? He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. And it was the people who had watched us, it was the people who had worked for us, and it was the families of the people who had worked for us. And after that show, we went into the newsroom. It was quite a scene. They brought up the newsroom from Wellington and Christchurch, and I kind of stood amongst everyone and made a little speech about mana and about the mana that we were leaving with, and that we would take to other places. And it gave us a control, I guess, or a positive end to what was a pretty horrible situation.
Do you think you would have done anything differently on the way? I don't want to say the way out, but it was the way out.
What you mean? Like picked up a couple of staplers, or
grab the odd Dell monitor on the way throughout the doors. I think because it's easy to take it really personally and turn it into a big fiery emotional thing, and there probably were a few journos that did that, right? Because it is, like I said, it's part of our identity as our work sometimes.
Absolutely, and everyone reacts differently, but at that moment, collectively, we were one, and we were proud of it. We did a great job. We had an aftermatch party.
I bet.
Yeah, I didn't actually hang around that long, to be honest. I was just exhausted by the whole thing.
Yeah, totally.
One tip for you, and for anyone listening, is don't go to Lynn Mall the morning after you've just ended a news service. I went there to go and change my phone, or to get a new phone, because I needed one. Yeah, and it must have taken me like 2 hours to get to 1NZ and out again, because people were just
selfies,
coming up and hugging, and it was just crazy. It was, and then my wife Heidi and I had planned to take a trip, and so we went to LA for a bit of a break, which was cool.
Awesome
to get out of it, and yeah.
And so now you're loving your new role, right? Like you seem like you've pivoted. You've more than pivoted. You've kind of reinvented yourself, and
I have
had a reboot.
It's a different skill again. I mean, it's still media, but I'm writing a lot more. I'm still doing video stories. The team at MBR are a fantastic team to work with. They've been very supportive. It's a challenging space to be a Te Ao Māori editor. I'll say that. It's obviously a conservative business publication. Well, by nature, business publications are conservative, and so I'm bringing a lot of new concepts and new ideas, certainly some new businesses to the to the pages of MBR. And I'm really enjoying that opportunity. We've got the Rich List out at the moment.
Oh, yeah, great. Can you get some of the Rich List on this podcast? Because I don't know if you noticed, it's called Where's My Money? And I actually need help finding where the fuck my money's all gone.
Reagan, I can tell you that neither you or I are on that Rich List.
I
think if you need to check it, you probably aren't.
Yeah, true. Not even like down in the hundreds?
No, not even in the hundreds. I think the cutoff point is 100 million, so...
Yeah, no, not for the next couple of years at least anyway.
What I have noticed, and it's been incredible, is working in business, just how much it drives everything. And obviously I'm doing stories about the Māori economy, which is booming at the moment, but other things too, which are all related, social issues, all those kinds of things. And so, I'm really excited by it. The biggest thing for me was going from a job where I'd start in the afternoon, and it was intense, weird because the last hour of your working day was also the most important.
Yeah, of course.
And it never really left you, to then going to a normal day.
The 9 to 5.
9 to 5.
Yeah.
I know. The second day I was at MBR, I said, how the hell do you guys get anything done working these hours?
Welcome to the real world,
McRoberts. Go to the
McRoberts.
barber in the weekend. What's going on here?
No gym time at 10:30.
No, so that's taken a little bit of getting used to. It's in the city as well, and I live out west. So most of my friends were, laughing with the prospect of me catching public transport. And Heidi, my beautiful wife, she went and got me she gave it to me a hop card for the train. I said, "What the hell's this?" And she said, "Oh, it's a hop card. You've got to use it to get on the train." I said, "Okay." She said, "I've only put two days credit on it, though, because that's about how long I think you'll last."
What? You said it was all about he tangata, and now you are living the life of he tangata, the people.
I'm he tangata all the way through. Karawhiua.
So, back to it. If someone's lost their job today, what advice would you give them? I know your job was totally different to a lot of jobs that your average, regular, everyday Kiwi has. But I think a lot of the advice that or the experiences you've had could translate to any job.
Yeah.
What would you give to them?
Well, be thankful that most people aren't going to know that you've lost your job.
Yeah, true. You can get through Linmore without the selfie crowd. Yeah.
In my journey into Te Ao Māori, I learned a beautiful whakatauki, which is he punga I mauai, and it means the anchor that holds you. And so with everything that I'd done, I felt I had a lot of anchors in my life. I had, my wife Heidi, obviously my kids, my whānau, my work, my te reo, my whakapapa, and all of these things. And so literally when the seas were swelling up and all over the place, I felt like I was okay. I was kind of bobbing above it. And I think the best thing to do is try and find that place for yourself. Know the long game. And the long game is you'll get through this and you'll find something else. And who knows, it could be great. I did get absolutely sick of people saying to me, "Oh my, when one door closes, another one opens." I had that so many times. I wanted to say, I want to stick that door up the...
Yeah. Technically a nice Pakeha whakatauki, but one you're just like, shut up. Stop giving me that crap. And also no to the selfie today. No, you're not that kind of guy. Well, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you opening up, because I know a lot of people have probably asked you, but it's nice to actually have the sit down and really get it from the horse's mouth, because it was such a strange thing to happen when... You're such a recognizable figure. Like I said, you're in people's living rooms every night. And for that to just go away must have just been such a strange thing for the people watching and for yourself. So
it was. But I found an immense freedom, actually, in stepping away from that role.
Yep.
I can say whatever I want now.
Absolutely. You could say shit in a microphone and no one's going to flip out, right?
Shit, why not?
There it is. Mike, thank you so much. I've really appreciated your time. One question, I guess, if we take it all back to before you were even working, how were you raised? What was your money upbringing? Because it's something we focused on a lot in season 1 is how people were actually raised with money. And a lot of people, it doesn't matter how successful they are now, they had completely different upbringings around money. What was yours? How were you exposed to money as a kid and as a young adult?
Not great. My parents were 16 when they had me, and then they had 3 other kids as well. And we live very much paycheck to paycheck. My dad was actually made redundant at one point, and I remember, it was such a terrible time for us. We had friends and family who would drop around bits and pieces, food and other things to get us through. It made me keenly aware of the freedom that money brings. But then it's never dictated what I've done for a living or the jobs that I've taken. I've been lucky enough to follow my passions and been paid well to do it.
Well, not lucky. Talented.
Well,
talented and driven. Like, I think you earned your way up the ladder, man. I don't think there's too much luck involved.
Yeah. Lucky to find the right thing, I suppose, and flourish at it. So, but I'm well off retirement, so I've still got a mortgage to pay. I've still got a couple of mouths to feed. Mine and my wife's. She's doing pretty well on her own though, but in terms of business.
Yeah.
But one of the things that working in business now and business reporting, at least, it's opened me to a lot of new ideas. My son works for a fintech company, a New Zealand startup. He's actually based in London.
Cool.
He's been trading gold for probably the last 2 years.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Awesome.
the little bugger told me when I got my redundancy, put it all into gold, Dad. It's going to be good for you. I said,
You would say that.
I'm just so risk averse. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I put it into crypto instead.
Put it off the mortgage. But of course, if I had followed his advice, I would have been doing pretty well at the moment. But they seem to have a pretty good idea. My kids seem to have a pretty good idea, and I think most younger people do these days. Of how to be more money literate.
I hope so. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. And, the government's just recently announced there's going to be more financial literacy in schools, which we love to hear. But I think the issue is a lot of people just don't talk about it. And when they find themselves in the shit, it's too late because they haven't been open and honest with themselves about their own financial habits and getting onto them early. Did you ever have any, cracks at credit cards and a little bit of debt that you shouldn't have got into, or any money mistakes like that?
Absolutely. In fact, when I first started my career, it was in radio, and back in the day when they used to have carts, so music and whatever would be played on carts, and to erase those, you had to wipe them over a magnetic field. And someone had told me that if you rubbed your checkbook over the magnetic field, it'd take an extra week for the check to be cashed. So that's what I used to do religiously.
What? So what kind of debts did you rack up?
Oh, nothing really. Like, it was just, I had 2 jobs for a while because I started working and then bought a car and did all those things 18, 19-year-old male does.
Yeah.
And couldn't afford it. So I ended up working as a silver service waiter at a restaurant in Christchurch while I was still working in the day in radio, and that got me out of my debt problems, and I swore I'd never go back in, so that was lucky.
But that's good. That's something a lot of people are having to do now, is work multiple jobs or find side hustles to supplement their main income, because life's actually fucking tricky at the moment.
It is.
Particularly right now.
It is. And while I said I'd never go back into debt, of course you get a mortgage and that's you. That's you done till you die.
But as we know, at least that's a good asset, and you've got a plan to pay it off.
Yes.
And that's by making friends with the rich listers, right?
That's right. Here's my account.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much. I really appreciate you coming in. It's been awesome to catch up.
Oh, mihi ana ki a koe. Thank you, Rick.
Beautiful man, beautiful chat. You might think it's easy for the news guy to bounce back, and you might be right, but every single person has a different background, a different job, and different circumstances to navigate if they find themselves facing unemployment. So we thought we'd hit the streets to ask a bunch of Kiwis how prepared they reckon they are if the employment shit were to hit the fan tomorrow.
We're in Auckland today asking people if they were to lose their jobs, how long would they survive? I can't imagine it's long. Let's go find out.
A couple of months. But I'm a go-getter. I'm really keen to get into anything. So
well, hopefully I don't lose my job. But I'm the owner, so there you go. A year.
A year?
Yeah.
Do you feel
Bit longer.
bit longer? Feel pretty
But
relatively comfortable?
it's different when you own a business, mate. So you can go exponentially downwards or exponentially upwards.
Yeah.
So so you've got a business to actually look after, not your own personal situation.
Probably 4 or 5 some time.
For some
Yeah. I would say at least probably 10 years at least.
10 years?
Yeah.
So you feel like you're in a pretty good
Yeah.
position right now?
I am.
Nice.
Yeah.
Over a year.
Over a year? So you feel pretty comfortable?
Mhm.
Cool.
Yep.
If you were to lose your job today, how long do you reckon you could last financially?
Not long. I lost my job a while ago, so I've only just day 3 of my new one. So yeah, probably maybe a month.
Right.
Yeah.
Because comfort knowing you've managed to get another job?
Yeah. Well, I was 9 months unemployed, and so yeah, that was I was uncomfortable probably for the last 2 months. But yeah, challenging times. But happy to be comfy now.
Yeah.
From well-known TV faces to regular Kiwis on the street, everyone deals with their own financial struggles, be they little, be they big. In part 2 of episode 1, we chat with Matt Buckeridge and Willie Moala from Enable Me and recruiting pro Tim Slyfield, who offers some advice on riding those rough redundancy seas. Hit that subscribe button here on YouTube and check out some juicy money content from season 3. You can find us all over social media as well, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're right there on your phones.